Welcome, viewers. Thank you for joining us on the Fuck the Silos podcast. I'm your host, Lawrence Yang, a family doctor. And I'm calling you from Vegas today. I'm in Vegas with the family, but I really wanted to catch James because James and I are both really interested in coaching and the practices of coaching. Um, so James and I know each other since we were teenagers, really. We were young teenagers and uh, we were growing up in a Catholic environment, and that's really the context where we met. But our lives have really gone on and moved on, and we've done so many different things, he and I, since then. And it's always so nice to connect. Um, James, James, can you introduce yourself a little bit to the crowd so they kind of know a little bit of the context about who you like to say that you are?
Absolutely. Lawrence, good to be here. So, my name is James Xu, born in Taiwan, grew up in Canada with Lawrence, as Lawrence mentioned. And I've been in mainland China for the last 12 years. Basically, I've worked in the tech industry almost all my career and moved from corporate to startup to entrepreneurship. And these days, I'm kind of freelancing and exploring things such as training and coaching. So, that's kind of my situation in a nutshell.
I understand, James, that you recently graduated from a program. Was it a master's in something program? What was it? Remind me. We talked about it in the
Yeah, it
last
was
podcast.
uh it was an executive MBA. So I recently finished that about a year ago. It was a 2.5 year program at CIBS, which is the China Europe International Business School in Shanghai. So it's not a full-time program. I did it part-time, but that's what I did, executive MBA.
And is it in that context where you came across this opportunity to learn coaching? Is that kind of what brought you into it?
I would say a little bit of yes and no. It didn't strictly bring me to coaching, but when I was going through that program, it was when I've had some exposure to coaches because the school basically hired coaches to lead some of our leadership modules or groups. And so that was when I had exposure to a coach who was guiding us through. And it's funny because I didn't actually even consider such a field until after graduation, which is 2.5, 3 years later. And I was going through some stuff in my career in corporate life because I went back to corporate after startups last year. And that's when I decided to make a bit of a shift or to explore this direction. So, yeah, you could say it's kind of the spark initially came from being exposed to a coach through the business school, but over time it was also a bit of self-discovery that ignited the spark. I guess I could say.
Yeah, you know what? Um, you mentioned that to do a leadership module that coaches were called in for your MBA program. And coaching skills and leadership skills, there are so many tie-ins. And I would have to say that coaching, leadership, and parenting and being a good friend and a good human, there are so many tie-ins there. Have you noticed that already?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know if it's correct to use this term anymore. Maybe it's not PC, but I feel like it's a spectrum. So whether you're parenting, managing somebody, mentoring somebody, coaching somebody, they're all just different functions of who you are as a person and as a professional. So as I'm starting to learn, now I'm still fairly new to the coaching field, but I feel like there is a time and place for everything. In the same way that I would have to imagine when you're a parent, you have to wear different hats. And so coach is just one skill set or hat that you can wear at a given time, especially when the person sitting across from you wants that and is seeking that. Because I also strongly believe that, to say a little bit more, I also strongly believe that fundamentally people have to help themselves. And so a coach is really like a partner or a good friend that can help guide them. But it's different from, say, an advisor or a manager where it's more of, oftentimes it's more directives or it's more prescribed, this is what you should do. So that's kind of how I feel. It's a spectrum, it's a balance of different things, and coaching is just one role that we play, either officially or unofficially.
That really resonates with me. The fact that it's almost like it's a way of being that you put on. And for me, the coaching is almost like how can I be most helpful in this situation? And how can I be most empowering? Those are the things that really stick out to me as key functions of being a coach, being helpful and being empowering. Um, and yeah, yeah, that really resonates what you said, that it's a hat that we put on, because in the right context, it's a great hat, a powerful hat to put on. But in the wrong context, that same hat can come off really badly. Uh, Stealth coaching is a term that comes to mind, like coaching people without getting permission, or having a transparent agreement to do coaching, can be actually very annoying and unhelpful. So it resonates. And you just started your coaching study, and you already have quite a bit of understanding that I can tell. I've been training and coaching for the past 5-6 years. Since burning out in my career as a family physician, I've done it. It really came in the context of systems quality improvement. There's this perspective that healthcare professionals are like, they're like professional athletes, and our goal, if maybe a basketball analogy is like, if I want to shoot a 3-pointer, if I want to do a slam dunk, it's if I coordinate my teams well. If I'm a good team player and we execute an excellent patient experience, we improve someone's health. That's our goal. And the only way to get there is that we do need coaching. We actually need coaching in our professional lives. And so many of us in healthcare see ourselves as singular heroes, or martyrs sometimes for our system, and that's not sustainable. And that's a culture that I was trained in when I was learning medicine, and that led, really contributed to a lot of my burnout. Not seeing myself as interdependent, not seeing myself as really a good part of a team, and not having access to coaches. So that's probably a similar thing that you might see in high performance business team members, that they burn out because of that lack of maximizing of the resources. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that you said that resonates. I think, again, I'm still fairly new at it, so I feel like I should probably stop saying that, because then every sentence I have to caveat, like, I'm new to it, but blah, 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 right? But I really think that coaching, or I should say what you said about, okay, so you're in the role of a family physician, or maybe other physicians, or someone working in healthcare. I think there's just a lot of overlap between anyone's career and their personal life. I have found when coaching or being coached that it's really hard to just draw lines and just say, okay, let's only talk about what you're doing at work. Because I think everything is related, connected, interdependent. I just don't think that you can really talk to someone about why they're struggling at work without talking about the personal stuff or stuff that's happening at home. It's all connected because we're just one person, one human being. So I think there's a kind of universality to coaching that is amazing. And that's why I think it's also attractive to me, because you can coach people on different aspects or dimensions of what they do, but fundamentally it all goes back to the personal. And so that's why I think coaches are also powerful. Even if I don't work in healthcare, I feel like we could have a partnership. Even if you don't work in tech, I feel like we could talk about things. I mean, it's just a very human thing. That's what I want to say.
Yes, yes. I'm curious, as a human, you have many skills. I know you to be a very skilled person. What is the one skill, in your opinion, and don't be afraid of like people judging you for this, just what is one skill that might that you feel that you have, that might lend really well to being a coach? What's something that you have, a skill, a quality, um, an experience that might really lend to some coaching contexts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If I were to give no humility Fs, I would call it. If I were to remove that, I think empathy. I think empathy is the one thing that I have that has always allowed me to build relationships, build trust with people fairly quickly. And I would say maybe it's a mix of empathy and just being real. because I feel like to get trust, you just have to represent yourself in a genuine way, as well as trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So that's that honestly, that's kind of why I decided to explore coaching, because I feel like I have those qualities. And honestly, man, like those kind of qualities also are not always great in every situation. Like if you have to be a hard ass and drive results, or you have to wear another mask, that's sometimes those are things that I kind of struggle with. But you're asking about my strengths, so I think that is a strength of mine.
Yeah, I would resonate with that. Even in your podcast, we can see, what a great listener you are, and your ability to pick up on the nonverbal cues, your ability to read not just the context of what's being said, but the emotional context, not the only the academic intellectual context, but the emotional context. So yes, that does lend very well for coaching experiences. And I love that you picked up on that nuance, that it's a great skill set, but in the wrong context, it's the wrong hat, just like we had said earlier. So some wisdom there, my brother, some humility there, and some nuance in the understanding, which I really appreciate. And yeah, I think similarly for me, it's the ability to listen. I think the ability to empty oneself out when we choose, as much as we can, and then to make space and to hold space for another to share their truth, and for us to, as you said, partner with them in almost a metaphysical way. And even though it's of course it's a cognitive thing, but there's a metaphysical element to coaching. As you said, it has so much to do with the person, the personhood, um, how that person embodies different qualities of themselves, and also it has to do with their worldview, their paradigm, um, and getting into that and accepting that, and not trying to push on the boundaries of that right away, but to sit in that space of their worldview and their paradigm, and simply be an accessory prefrontal cortex for them. Be be an assistant for them to see differently, to see a new path, to have a new divergent idea. It's really just assisting people, I think, most of the time to find innovative ways to live. Um, it's an innovation partner. Yeah. Any thoughts or reflections on that?
I think you said it well. There's just a lot there, and you're obviously much more experienced than I am, having done it for 4 or 5 years. So I don't have too much to add on top of that. It's just it's a partnership. It involves innovation. It involves thinking outside the box. That's how I interpret innovation. And it's very unique and it's very satisfying when you do land it with your partner or coachee, I should say.
That's right. And landing it is when you've been helpful. But sometimes that being helpful is very, it might be contrary to whatever your personal visions are, but for your client, if it's the right direction, it's the right direction. And that letting go of control is a huge part of, there's like, yeah, letting go of control, riding the wave of the other person's motivations and stuff like that. That's a big part of it. And that's a skill set, to be able to put aside whatever's going on in our lives to be there for that other person. Is it's a giving, it's a gift, it's a gifting. And when it goes well, as you said, there's so much reward in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm i'm excited to partner with you and to do some, we're going to swap some coaching sessions maybe coming up.
Yeah, let's do it. I need the reps, honestly. So
We all do. We all do. I'm excited. And as you said, we need not be subject matter experts in the areas that we're coaching. Coaching is really a process. You can be coached by AI potentially. So
yeah,
um
as a technologist, I can definitely see that happening. I am not that fearful of it happening. I feel like that is a kind of inevitability, just like how things like therapy and things have moved into a kind of digital space. Maybe it's still with humans, but there's definitely very interesting things ahead, I think.
that's right. And Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if AI is a better coach than a human. But then again, you would have to figure out what metric is better. Hey, before we end off today, any other thoughts on coaching that you'd like to share with the audience?
No, not really. I mean, I'm trying to avoid being a podcast host because I have found that's a major leak is when I'm a guest, I want to ask you questions, but I don't have any comments. Like if you're asking me if I have questions for you, I have a lot, but that's maybe for another day I would have to expect.
Sure. Yeah, why don't you shoot? What are some questions you might have for me? We'll do
I'll just
two.
do
We'll
a
do
major.
two. Yeah.
I'll just curate like maybe one or two, right? I think one is like if you were in my shoes, what would you suggest that I do as a kind of a relatively junior coach? Like what are things that help you maybe 4 or 5 years ago that you could go back and tell yourself or just tell me?
It's really the triad coaching. So we do this thing called triad coaching in our training where we coach another person and we have somebody observing. And I'm sure that's going to happen in your program. Um, that was you gain this self awareness about your body posture, about how you move certain muscles in your face, about your how you miss cues, how you miss verbal cues and nonverbal cues. So that is fantastic. How your face, how you have the resting bitch face, like that. These are things that people, if they want to be helpful to you, will tell you transparently, and it allows you to shift. It's so rare that in our lives that we have people who can give us that other perspective, to hold a mirror up to us with fully the potentially the intention just to help us become better versions of ourselves in the context of coaching. So uh, so much of coaching for me, I think, is about personal development. So a coaching program is a personal development program. It's and just like you said, it's all about the personhood and how can we be better space holders for others? It's if we are well ourselves. So there is so much wellness baked into coaching training. Um, yeah, well, that's my thoughts.
That's a good one. Yeah, I have to absorb that a little bit. We have thought about not we have thought about, but the when all of us going through the program, we are going to do the triad style where there's a third party. In fact, we've already done some in person and probably going to do that with our Zoom sessions as well. In addition to looking at the recording and the tape, of course, because I think that also says a lot. My next question for you is, do you have you dealt with imposter syndrome as a coach? And if so, how do you manage or deal with it?
I've always naturally had, well, since I was 15, I've always naturally had a kind of like a bravado. I've had a bravado that has allowed me to do things counter culturally or just that are weird. Um, so I would describe it as a maybe I've had a pretentiousness, and what that means, what I mean, an audaciousness. What I mean is that I haven't been really afraid of being weird, wearing weird shirts and things like that. So I think that has helped me to not feel like an imposter. I've had the understanding that we are all on our journeys, even the most experienced coaches, even though I revere them, that they've just had more reps, more learning cycles, more PDSA cycles than I have, and that's why they've reached there. And I don't need to be an expert right away. I don't need to be awesome. I'm allowed to make mistakes, and these are the same topics that I coach my coachees on. That perfection is an illusion, and that we can't let, like Voltaire said, we can't let perfect our attempt at perfection be the enemy of good enough. So these are coaching topics, and these are things that as coaches we're allowed to embody. We're allowed to embrace our humanity, our imperfections as coaches as well. And that's what really draws me into coaching culture too, is the appreciation of the humanity and the acceptance, the self-acceptance that is within coaching, because that's what we are to help to use as well as a framework to allow our coachees to heal. Yeah, those are some thoughts on my side. What else you got?
I got one last one that was in my mind. Let me see if I can recall. This is part of the coaching thing, right? It's like when you're listening to someone's answer, you shouldn't be thinking about the next one. So it's like there was a flash and then it's kind of disappeared because I was trying to listen, really lean into what you're
You did
saying.
the
But
right
let me
thing.
think I can
You did the
let me
right
think if
thing.
I can
If things
summon
come
it
back
again.
in the times when they come back.
Exactly. Oh yeah, I remember now. So how did you develop your style as a coach over time? Was there some sort of trial and error? Were you always fully formed at the beginning? Because this is very much a leading question, because I have found that in my relatively short journey so far, it feels like you're kind of picking from almost a toolbox of different things. Like, okay, how do you navigate the next step in this relationship? How do you use these templates or these open-ended questions? I feel like you could always end up trying things a lot of different ways, different permutations. So I'm curious, like, how did you navigate that with your mindset, in terms of becoming a more fully formed coach?
Um, I don't know if anybody would accept the term fully formed coach, especially coaches. But
Right.
we are given models in our education, and sometimes even very simple models like the GROW model, the GROW. What's your goal? What's your current reality? What are your options? And what will you do? So moving into action. So that's that 4 steps, the GROW model. What's your goal? What's your current reality? What are your options? And what will you do? So even that simple model uh, can actually take you very far as a coach. Practicing that model with multiple different humans, different, and then just leaning into your ability to listen, as you said, your ability to listen and to attempt to understand, to lean into your empathy muscle. Doing that over and over, those reps are so powerful, even though it's such a basic model. In coaching, there's thousands of different models and approaches and styles. And it's really about you going into the gymnasium of coaching and trying different ones out and just really watching where you go and watching your skill set expand. So for me, it was really the GROW model um, that I've learned, which has really been in my bread and butter. It's simple, but it, I'm always surprised how much comes out from simply using the GROW model. So just sticking to one model, doing reps, and embracing where that goes.
Nice. I love that. I also really like the grow model. I think it's how should I put it? Deceptively simple, but it works. And I think one thing I'm also learning as a coach is that you have to kind of trust the process and trust the frameworks and the tools. You can't just, I shouldn't say you can't. I think there's always ways to deviate from the script, but especially as you're in the beginning where I feel like I'm trying to get closer to mastery, even though fully formed, as you said, is not realistic. I think there's still a lot to be said for just repeating the basics and just trusting that the tools are going to work. They've been tested on thousands, millions of people. And I think that's something that I have to constantly remind myself is that we're all unique, but at the end of the day, we're not all that special. So like things that work on human beings are going to work on other human beings, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. We're not that special is a big lesson. And you're right. Yeah, humans are humans. Um, I think this has been a great conversation, great starter. I'm excited to work with you. I feel like you already have a lot of the basics and the fundamentals, and I look forward. I'll be DMing you to schedule a date. I want to thank you so much for taking this time to start this chat with me. I'm stoked for your journey. I can already see you're going to help a lot of people, like more than you already do.
I appreciate that, man. That's fundamentally where I'm trying to come from is try to help or support others. So I really appreciate that coming from you. And let's have those coaching conversations. I love to learn from you.
Sweet. I'll see you in the DMs, brother. Bye. Bye.
Bye.